There's a lot more to standing off-road than just standing on the motorcycle. And if you're not doing it right, you just might be making it worse. Let's talk about one of the most fundamental skills of riding off-road, and that is when and how to stand on a motorcycle. It's often misunderstood. Riders believe that if you stand up, you must always stand when going off-road. That's not true. I did a video on sitting because if it's not difficult, if it's not a technical environment, sitting allows you to relax, to save energy, so when you need it, you have it. The reason we stand off-road is when things are technical, when they're challenging, when they're scary. If your gut says, oh, I need to sit down, then you should probably be standing. If on the other hand you go, well, I feel really comfortable standing off-road, oh geez, then chances are sitting's just fine. The undeniable advantage of standing is that when I stand off-road, I can see farther down the road better, but most importantly, I can see the dips, the shadows, the potholes, the sticks. I can see tracks much, much better from a standing position. You know, I'm 6 foot, so if I raise myself up, I get another 3 feet of elevation, I'm gonna see a lot better. If I sit down, I'm blinded by my screen, by my controls. I don't have that same vantage point. It's not just about how the bike performs, it's about vision. The misunderstood aspect of stand is that if I stand, I'm lowering my center of gravity. And that's just not true. If I'm standing up, I'm raising my mass above the motorcycle. And if I stand up and I'm in a locked position, that's very true. I may actually be causing, let me correct that, I am causing a disadvantage to that motorcycle as I move up and down. If that bike tilts, because I'm much higher on the motorcycle, it's much more likely to tip over to push out. If I disengage or disconnect from the bike, my upper body sits independent of the lower machine, then I get a weight advantage where my weight's being carried lower on the motorcycle and I can subtract that weight that floats above the motorcycle. So as long as that bike can move freely, I'm in a much better position. Now I have advantage. And that's what's critical when we stand, is that we stay nice and loose. But if I'm moving to get over that steering column and over the handlebars, what I'm really doing is just making sure I'm in a position so if the bike launches forward, I'm not being thrown off the bike. I'm still in a place where I can be controlled. If the bike comes back towards me, if you have a lot of stress on your wrist, you're leaning on the bars, and that's wrong. Absolutely, you should not have weight up on those handlebars. You're always floating above it. If at any given time you can't remove your hands, then you've got too much weight on the bars. And there's two ways to remove that weight from those front handlebars. One is to wedge in with the knees. And these bikes, on mine, I've got a rubber pad here. I also have leather on the inside of my riding gear, and that allows me to wedge in with friction. So as I go forward, it gives me a place to take the weight off my bars. The other way to do that is to counterweight your upper body. As I move down, I'm not just moving forward, I'm crouching down to allow my rear end to counterweight the front. Now what I'm not doing is standing here and sitting back where it looks like I'm sitting on the toilet. If you look like you're getting ready to just take a dump on your bike, that's wrong, okay? That's, if you're coming through and you find your upper legs are just screaming as you're riding. If you're back here, you're still in the same thing. You're holding on to the handlebars, and now you're burning a lot of energy. Let's face it, if you're riding one of these motorcycles, you're probably at the back half of the age scale, and energy conservation and thinking our way through this is far more important than muscling it and just using physical strength to control the motorcycle, because you're not going to win. These bikes are way, way too big for that. When I come up forward on the standing position, I'm looking at the points of contact. Points of contact are the feet where they're tight, the handlebars where I'm just touching to have control of the motorcycle. My shoulders should not pass forward of those hands. If my handlebars are back here, if you have risers that come up and back towards you, or your handlebars are rocked back here, which a lot of riders like from sitting, then that's going to put you in a very, very awkward position riding off-road and very poor control. So you want your handlebars flat enough and far enough forward that your shoulders aren't going to pass them. Your knee should be locked in here, and your hip is generally somewhere over your ankle. So it should be relatively in line. I'm not dropping my hip behind. I'm not coming way in forward. Usually I'm coming kind of a straight down kind of a motion. This is where I get that counterweight. The only time you'll get a little shift forward or back is depending how far forward I go, I might drop a little bit farther to the rear, but chances are if I'm doing that, I also have forces pushing me. So if I neutralize those, I end up in a forward position. So using grip with the knees or using the counterweight, always loose grip here. And then when you sit and stand, even the process for standing and sitting matters. When I stand, I'm not going to stand like this. Say, well, but my back hurts and my knees hurt. Well, this is still not good, because it's really going to hurt when you bounce off the ground. When I'm standing here, the problem is I'm getting thrown back, and if it's up here, when I come forward, now it's way too close to my chest. I want those bars down lower. Most of these adventure motorcycles, the GSs, the KTMs, those that have a fairly strong focus towards the off-road capability, and I know some of you are going to debate the GS, but those bikes generally have good handlebars with a very good height. They don't really need rise on them. The bikes like the V-Stroms, which may have more street bias to them, their handlebars sweep back farther, they sit down lower. The 800 Tiger or the new 900 Tiger, not the XC models, those bikes, they sit much lower. So some of those may need risers, and there's other reasons to modify or put risers on the bike, but that's usually for riders over 6 foot or with motorcycles that really desperately need it, which are street bias motorcycles. But those risers that people put on, they put them all the way up here, and that just is the wrong spot. You should be into here. And if you say, well, it's not comfortable to stand the whole time, let me go back to where I started. If it's technical, we want to be aggressive anyways. We want to be in this position. Elbows are out, my wrists are flat and straight, and I'm aggressive dealing with it. And when it's not scary, well, then I can just sit. And that's that standing sitting posture. You'll notice I'm not going straight up. I'm going forward into an aggressive position, and then I slide back down into that position. So my body and head is moving up and forward and then back down. I'm not going straight up, and I'm not sitting like I'm going to the bathroom. So you're not a passenger anyway, so get away from doing this where you come all the way back. You should be coming straight down. If you're in a vertical high visibility position, or if you're in an aggressive position, you should be sliding back diagonal. There's a lot more to this whole standing posture riding off-road than what I'm talking about here. We can talk about wrist control, bike setup, throttle control, the angles of those controls, the balance of that weightless rider and how the energy interacts with this as a rider. But the core essential basics are what I'm covering here. And that is, keep your feet in tight, stay connected with the lower bike, move forward into your position, keep your weight off the bars, make sure that bike can move freely underneath you. And those are the most critical aspects you need to know when you first start riding off-road and you start standing. And when I do training, I encourage my riders to stand as much as possible. The exception are those that fatigue is setting in, where fatigue is a bigger issue than the standing. But it's a great way to build it so that becomes your default. Anytime you see mud, rock, nastiness, scariness, stand up. That should be your natural tendency, and you need to be relaxed while you're standing up. So if you're fearful, that's going to be hard to do. Well, with that said, I've got some riding to do today, and all this snow isn't going to warm up as the sun goes away. I have some great news to share with all of you. I am working on a location to come to South Africa, somewhere near Johannesburg this May, so May of 2021. I'm going to offer some adventure training while I'm down there. If you're interested in that, go to Tkacs.com, go to my training page. Any training I ever do, any presentations I do, any place you can find me, it's going to be on there. So if you want to track me down, that's where you're going to do it. The second part of this amazing news is this. I have the new Skydio 2. The drone footage for this video came from this drone. What makes it amazing is the videos I shoot are solo. Right now, nobody's behind the camera. It's a tripod and me. So having a drone that can track me, that can follow me on the road, the possibilities are wonderful. I'm thinking of all the different things I can do to help illustrate riding techniques or doing reviews with this particular drone. I am still waiting on the extra batteries and for the tracking beacon. So all the work it did today was by visual tracking. Really difficult conditions with the wow, that's easy for me to say. The reflection of the snow and the harsh shadows. It lost me a couple of times, but it never ran into any branches. It never ran into the trees. It never crashed into the ground. An amazing new tool made possible by the support that I get through Patreon. If you're one of my Patreon supporters, thank you, thank you, thank you. I am beyond excited with this new tool. If you are not a Patreon supporter, please consider joining in and helping keeping these videos going, help keeping the equipment up to date so I can continue to make some of the best videos I can as a solo producer. On that note, make sure that you always smile while you ride, no matter how miserable you are, no matter how cold you are, no matter how hot and sweaty and sticky you are. Remember, you're the one that chose to do it. We do this on purpose. If you pick up your bike 100 times in a day, keep smiling, because attitude really does matter.